for every speculator from the novice. Staring at his first chart to the seasoned professional managing a great fortune, there is one question that precedes all others, a question upon which the fate of all capital rests. When is the right moment to buy? To answer this question incorrectly is to enter the market on a foundation of hope, to place a bet against the great impersonal probabilities, a path that almost certainly leads to ruin. The amateur answers this question with an impulse, a guess, or a whispered tip. He is a creature of emotion forever, chasing a market that seems to be one step ahead. But the master does not guess. He does not hope. He has a process. Jesse Livermore, the greatest speculator of his time, knew that a perfect entry point was not a matter of luck, but the logical and inevitable conclusion of a rigorous, sequential, and disciplined test. He did not search for opportunities. He waited for them to prove themselves to him. He understood that a successful trade is not a single brilliant action, but a campaign. And a successful campaign begins with meticulous preparation. He developed through a lifetime of costly trial and error a mental checklist, a 5-step test that every potential trade had to pass before he would risk a single dollar of his capital. This is that test. It is a simple, powerful, and timeless guide for navigating the most critical decision any trader will ever make. It is a framework for moving from the chaotic noise of the market to the quiet confidence of a high probability setup. It is a plan that forces the speculator to replace his own flawed emotional impulses with the cold, hard, and objective verdict of the market itself. To follow this 5-step plan is to stop gambling and to start operating a serious, professional, and potentially profitable business. Before we continue, please subscribe and leave a quick comment, even one word. This small action helps the algorithm show this video to more people and tells me these deep dives are worth making. The entire test, the very foundation of this professional approach, begins not with a stock, not with a sector, but with a panoramic view of the entire market. Step 1, you must assess the general market trend. This was Livermore's first and most sacred commandment. He knew with an unshakable certainty that the individual stock, no matter how promising its own story, is ultimately a ship sailing on the great ocean of the overall market. To attempt to sail north in a hurricane blowing south is not an act of courage, it is an act of suicide. He learned this lesson early and often. The vast majority of his greatest and most profitable campaigns were conducted in perfect harmony with the market's great primary trend. The big money, he insisted, is not in the individual fluctuations, but in the main movements. That is, not in reading the tape, but in sizing up the entire market and its trend. His first job, therefore, was always to determine the direction of this great underlying tide. Was he in a primary bull market or a primary bear market? This was not a matter of a simple guess. It was a careful and dispassionate diagnosis of conditions. He would study the flow of money, the state of credit, and the health of the nation's great industries. But above all, he would study the action of the market itself. Was the general list of stocks making a series of higher highs and higher lows? Was the market absorbing bearish news with ease, a sign of underlying strength? Or was it failing to rally on bullish news, a sign of profound internal weakness? The tape, he knew, was the ultimate barometer of the market's health. The beginner's first and most important rule, then, is to learn to wait with the patience of a master until a great and powerful bull market is undeniably underway. He has no business trying to catch the bottoms of a bear market or navigating the treacherous whipsawing currents of a sideways market. His only game, the only arena where the odds are overwhelmingly in his favor, is the long side of a confirmed primary uptrend. If this condition is not met, the test stops here. The most profitable action is to do nothing. With the great strategic direction established, he would then turn to the second equally critical question. Step 2, you must identify the leading industry group. Livermore knew that even in the strongest bull market, not all stocks advance equally. The great upward force of the trend is never evenly distributed. It is always concentrated with a ferocious intensity in a select few industry groups. These are the leaders, the generals of the market army, the sectors that are the very engine of the entire advance. He wrote with the clarity of a man, stating an undeniable law: as they go, so goes the whole market. His strategy was to focus his capital and his analytical firepower exclusively on these leading groups, to spread oneself thin across the entire market, to have an interest in a dozen different sectors was to invite confusion and to guarantee a mediocre result. It is much easier to watch a few than many, he insisted. The path to extraordinary profits was through concentration, not diversification. Livermore was a master at observing the result of market forces, the clear, established trend on the tape, but to understand the engine driving that trend, we can turn to one of his great contemporaries, a man who dedicated his life to mapping the market's internal mechanics, Richard Wyckoff. While Livermore was the supreme practitioner, the intuitive genius of the tape, Wyckoff was the master analyst who codified the science of accumulation and distribution, the great campaigns buy, smart money that create the very bull and bear markets that Livermore traded. Livermore saw the wave. Wyckoff explained the currents beneath. If you want to understand not only how Livermore traded, but why the market behaves the way it does from the inside out, subscribe to our new channel, Richard Wyckoff Trading Methods. There we dissect the logic of supply and demand in detail. The link is in the description below. The leading group, like the primary trend, is not a matter of opinion. It is a fact revealed by the action of the tape. The leading group is the one that emerges from a market correction first, and with the most explosive force. It is the one whose component stocks are the first to make new highs. It is the one that shows the greatest percentage gains and the most sustained aggressive buying. Its leadership is a visible, tangible thing to the trained observer. The beginner's task is to learn to see this. He must train his eye to look for this concentrated strength, to ignore the siren's call of the weaker, lagging groups that seem cheaper or due for a move. A stock in a weak group, even in a great bull market, is a ship trying to sail with a broken mast. A stock in the leading group, however, is a modern vessel with the full force of the wind and the tide at its back. This second step of the test then is a process of radical focus, of eliminating the 90% of the market that is mediocre, to concentrate on the 10% that is truly dynamic. Having completed the first two strategic steps of the test, the speculator has achieved a level of clarity that eludes the vast majority of market participants. He has confirmed that the great primary tide of a bull market is at his back, and he has identified the single strongest fleet, the leading industry group that is sailing most powerfully upon that tide. He is no longer lost in the vast, confusing ocean of the general list. His focus is now concentrated, his purpose clear, but the test is not yet complete. The next steps are the most refined, the tactical maneuvers that narrow the focus from the leading fleet down to the single flagship, and then to the precise psychological moment to board her. This brings us to the third and most crucial step in the selection process. Step 3. You must select the leader within the group. This is the final and most powerful filter, the step that separates the good from the truly great. Even within the strongest and most dynamic industry group, not all stocks are created equal. There will always be one or two undisputed generals, the true leaders that move first, advance fastest, and demonstrate the most profound and resilient strength. The other stocks are mere soldiers in the ranks, following the commands of their leaders. The professional speculator is interested only in the generals. The amateur, in his perpetual and misguided quest for a bargain, almost always makes a fatal error at this juncture. He sees the leading stock, which has already had a substantial advance, and he deems it too expensive. He looks instead for the laggard in the same group, a stock that has not yet moved, and he buys it, believing it is a safer and more logical purchase. He thinks to himself, this stock is in a strong group and it hasn't moved yet. It is due to catch up. This Jesse Livermore knew was a profound and fundamental misreading of the market's language. A laggard is not a bargain. It is a weakling. Its failure to advance in concert with its stronger brethren is not a sign of a pending opportunity. It is a profound and glaring warning signal. It is the market's own clear announcement that there is some unseen internal flaw, some hidden source of distribution, or some fundamental problem that is preventing the stock from participating in its group's prosperity. Livermore stated it as a core principle, learned through years of costly experiences had taught me to beware of. Buying a stock that refuses to follow the group leader. The professional does not buy weakness, hoping it will turn to strength. He buys proven demonstrated strength, and he is willing to pay a premium for it. His task is to identify the leader. The leader is not a matter of opinion, it is a fact, proven by its behavior on the tape. The leader is the stock that moves first. It is the one that makes the largest percentage gains on the highest volume. It is the one that acts right. It absorbs profit-taking with an ease that is almost contemptuous. It feels strong, vital, and alive. It is the stock that everyone is watching, the one that is making the headlines. Livermore's great campaign in the steel stocks was a perfect illustration of this principle in action. He was bullish on the entire group, but he did not buy all the steel stocks equally. He began by testing both U.S. Steel and Utah Copper. From the very first day, U.S. Steel acted like a true leader, moving with power and purpose. Utah Copper, in contrast, was sluggish and unresponsive. Heeding the tape's clear verdict, he concentrated his full financial firepower on the proven leader, US Steel, while leaving the laggard alone. This single disciplined decision was the key to one of his most profitable campaigns. With the undisputed leader of the leading group now clearly identified, the test arrives at its fourth and most psychologically demanding step. Step 4, you must time the entry with a pivotal point. This is the great and final challenge of the analytical phase. The speculator now has the right market, the right group, and the right stock. But all of this brilliant work is for not if his timing is flawed, to be correct in your analysis, but premature in your action is to invite a slow and agonizing financial death. You will be whipped by meaningless fluctuations, your capital and your nerve eroded long before the real profitable move ever begins. Livermore knew more than any other trader that timing was everything. He wrote, "Much depends upon beginning at exactly the right time. It took me years to realize the importance of this. It also cost me some hundreds of thousands of dollars. The amateur is consumed by impatience, by a frantic need to be in the market. The professional, in contrast, must cultivate the supreme and difficult art of waiting. He must sit, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks, his capital held in reserve until the market itself gives the final unequivocal signal that it is ready to move. This signal for Livermore was the decisive breach of a pivotal point. This was his psychological moment, the point in time and price where the long period of quiet preparation was over and the public marking up phase was about to begin. For the beginner following this plan, the simplest and most powerful pivotal point to watch for is the moment a leading stock makes a new high after a period of consolidation or a natural, healthy reaction. It is only at this precise juncture, and not a moment sooner, that the first commitment should be made. His legendary campaign in Bethlehem Steel was the ultimate testament to this discipline. For 6 long weeks he watched the stock climb, his bullish conviction growing stronger with every passing day. He saw it move from the 50s to the 80s, to the 90s. Every point of advance was a siren's call to his impatience. The amateur would have jumped in a dozen times, but Livermore waited. He was not interested in the preliminary skirmishes. He was waiting for the main event, the signal that the great public advance was about to begin. That signal for him was the breach of the great pivotal point at 100. The moment it was crossed, he acted, and in doing so, he entered one of the greatest trades of his career. This is the great challenge: to sit idly by, to watch a stock that you know is a leader climb higher, and higher requires a level of self-control that few possess. But it is this very discipline that separates the professional from the amateur. The professional is not paid for trading. He is paid for being right. And being right requires waiting for the one single moment when the probabilities are overwhelmingly in your favor. With the completion of this 4th step, the entire analytical phase of the campaign is over. The speculator has successfully navigated the great top-down filtration process. He has confirm the primary trend of the market. He has identified the leading group. He has selected the strongest stock within that group, and he has had the supreme patience to wait for that chosen stock to arrive at its own perfect psychological moment to act. He has now done everything in his power to tilt the odds in his favor. He is now, and only now, ready to proceed to the final tactical step of the test, the execution of the trade itself. This is the step that bridges the gap between a brilliant analysis on paper and a tangible profit in the account. It is the science of committing capital, the tactical execution of the campaign plan. The amateur, in his excitement and greed, sees the buy signal and rushes in. With his entire stake at once, he goes. Allen, a single heroic bet. This, Livermore knew, was a strategic blunder of the highest order. It maximizes risk at the precise moment of entry, making the entire campaign vulnerable to a single adverse fluctuation. The professional does not act this way. He moves with the calculated precision of a general, committing his troops to a battle one battalion at a time. This brings us to the core of Livermore's execution strategy, the probe. He would never, under any circumstances, take his full intended line at the initial entry point. His first move was always a small exploratory commitment, perhaps 1/4 or one of his total intended position. This was not the main assault. It was a reconnaissance mission. Its purpose was singular: to ask the market one final practical question with real money on the line. Am I right? And is the time right now? The market's answer to this probe was immediate and binary, and it governed all subsequent action. This is where Livermore's number one rule for every trade came into play. The probe must show a profit almost immediately. An immediate profit was the market's own final and irrefutable confirmation that the entire four-step analysis had been correct. It was a green light of the highest order, a signal that the line of least resistance was clear and the great advance was truly underway. If, however, that initial small probe immediately resulted in a loss, it was an equally clear signal. It was the market's final verdict that despite all the careful preparation, the timing was flawed. The resistance was greater than anticipated. The move was not yet ready. In this scenario, the rule was absolute. The position was to be closed out immediately. The small predetermined loss accepted without question or regret. The entire five-step test was now invalid, and the speculator would return to a position of cash, waiting for a new, more opportune moment. This is the great defensive genius of the method. The first commitment is small, and the loss, if it comes, is therefore insignificant. It is a small tactical retreat, a cheap price to pay for the invaluable information that you are wrong. It is this discipline that separates the professional who lives to fight another day from the amateur whose Allen bet, if mistimed, can his entire campaign from the very start. But what if the probe is successful? What if the initial commitment does in fact show a quick and decisive profit? This is where the second and more aggressive phase of the entry method begins. The science of pyramiding having been proven right by the market. The speculator's job is now to press his advantage. He will now add the second, third, and fourth parts of his intended line, but only under a set of strict, unwavering conditions. The first condition is the most important and the most contrary to the amateur's instincts. Each succeeding purchase must be at a higher price than the one before it. This is the art of averaging up, the polar opposite of the amateur's cardinal sin of averaging down. The professional does not reinforce failure. He reinforces success. To buy more of a stock as it advances is to add to a position that the market is actively proving to be correct. You are not buying an expensive stock. You are buying a stock that is demonstrating its own profound and undeniable strength. The logic is unassailable. The first probe was a success. The second purchase at a higher price is a bet on that success continuing. If that too is profitable, the third purchase is made with even greater confidence. The speculator is building his position on a rising scale, his commitment growing only in proportion to his proven success. His largest and final commitment is made only when the trade is already a significant winner, when his initial judgment has been validated by the market not once but multiple times. Throughout this process, his risk is being methodically managed. With each new addition to the pyramid, the stop loss is trailed upward, as in the famous system of the great gambler Pat Hearn. The stop is moved to just below the price of the most recent purchase. This powerful mechanical trick achieves a remarkable result. It systematically locks in the profits of the earlier commitments, often making the entire now substantial position virtually risk-free. The speculator is, in a very real sense, letting the market's own profits finance his increased exposure. This then is the complete five-step test for a perfect entry. It is a journey that moves from the broadest strategic assessment down to the most precise tactical execution. Step 1. You confirm the great primary trend of the market. Step 2. You identify the leading industry group. Step 3. You select the single, undisputed leading stock within that group. Step 4. You wait with the supreme patience of a master for that stock to reach its own precise pivotal point for action. And step 5. You execute a gradual entry, beginning with a small probe and pyramiding your position only on the market's own confirmed and profitable validation. To follow this checklist is to transform speculation from a frantic, emotional gamble into a calm, disciplined, and professional business. It leaves nothing to chance, nothing to hope, and nothing to fear. It is a systematic process for ensuring that when you finally do commit your capital in a significant way, you are doing so in the right market with the right stock at the right time and in the right way. This is not a guarantee of profit on any single trade, for speculation can never be made entirely safe, but it is the closest thing a man can get to a guarantee of long-term consistent success. It was the foundation of Livermore's greatest victories, and it remains the only true path for the speculator who is serious about his craft to truly understand the mind of the man who forged these principles, to witness the epic market battles where this very plan was put to the ultimate test. The essential chronicle remains Edwin Lefebvre's 1923 masterpiece, Reminiscences of a Stock Operator. This is not merely a book, it is a deep, psychological portrait of a master at work, a narrative that gives life and context to every one of these timeless rules. For those committed to this study, a link to the edition featuring a unique detailed chapter-by-chapter analysis by Max Davidson, an interpretation specifically designed to translate this century-old wisdom for the modern reader, is provided in the description below.